Good evening. I'm Socrates Garrett, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African-American-owned broadcasting studio. We believe digital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African-American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. When We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again. Good evening, and welcome to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi is the capital of this great state. And Mississippi has been hit extremely hard over the last couple of weeks with bad weather that has just devastated our northern counties up in the city of Rolling Fork and Silver City. More devastation than we've ever seen before. And you know, the irony of that situation is that next day, that Saturday, the skies were clear. It was a beautiful day. And I said to myself, God must have a sense of humor, because after so much devastation, we find ourselves in a beautiful day the next day, giving hope and confidence that the city and the state would recover and would be restored. The mayor, Mayor Walker, up there in Rolling Fork, said that Rolling Fork will come back bigger and better than ever before. The resiliency of our people in Mississippi is to be admired. We were hit with Camille, just devastated on our Gulf Coast. And so we're experiencing a lot of tornadoes, more than we normally have. And it must go back to something with climate control. And our Vice President Gore warned of global warming. And so we find ourselves now with unusual weather. Our heart and our prayers go out today to the folk over in Little Rock, Arkansas, that have just been devastated again with a tornado that occurred today. And so this pattern continues, and Mississippi is on alert for bad weather tonight through Saturday morning. The governor has sent out a notice of extreme bad weather with the possibilities of tornadoes being in our city, in our state again. And so we're here in Mississippi, and we're already the poorest state in the nation. We have the greatest number of African Americans in our state than any other state in America. Some 40% of our population is African American. 25 to 30% of that population lives below the poverty line. And so we find ourselves in some very challenging times, being hit from all sides. You know, when I was in the Army, we faced a lot of fire, and the most dangerous fire in the world was what we call friendly fire. And that's when you're being attacked by your own troops on your own side. And we find ourselves in Mississippi experiencing a lot of friendly fire as well as external fire. And so we have what's brewing here, a perfect storm. And something's got to give. Something's got to happen if we're going to move Mississippi forward, or if we're just going to maintain at the state that is in. We can't even maintain the poor state that we're in if we continue to get these kind of activities. Not only that, we are focused with internal strife. Our governor and our mayor and our city council are at greater odds than ever before anybody has ever known. Recently, we had an emergency declared because we could not find a garbage contractor to pick up our garbage. The mayor asked a group of local folks to intervene and to provide that service. We were able to do that. The city council shot that down. And today, March 31st is the last day of the contract for Richards Disposal Services to pick up garbage in the city of Jackson. Now you take all of this in mind. We got a lot of internal fighting going on between the governor and the mayor who don't trust one another. And we have a lot of fighting going on between the mayor and the city council that don't trust one another. And the citizens of this great state just continue to suffer. Now, tomorrow morning, we don't know who is going to pick up this garbage. You have all kinds of ridiculous things that are going around saying that what we should do is freeze all our seafood, don't put it on the street. Put ammonia around your garbage bag so maybe that the animals won't tear into it and put that debris and garbage all over everywhere. And our city council people during a city council meeting, a special meeting held on yesterday to try and avoid this situation, 4 members of our council were absent. 3 African-American males were absent. 1 Caucasian male were absent. So they could not have a voting meeting because it did not have a quorum. And so nothing was decided. So here in Mississippi, we're reeling from a devastation of a water crisis where many homes went without water for months, unable to flush their commodes and unable to take a bath and unable to drink the water. Then next we get hit with a tornado that devastates Rolling Fork like something we've never seen before. Then on yesterday, the council refused to vote on a contract to extend Richards Disposal Service picking up garbage. So tomorrow we will have garbage all over our streets. Something has got to give. Something's rotten in Denmark. We live in Mississippi. We want the best for all Mississippians, but leadership, or the lack thereof, is coming to an all-time high. And if we don't change the direction that we're going in, we'll find ourselves worse off than a third world country. Now, to my guest, as always, is Dr. Eldridge Henderson, a man that was born on a plantation and has a doctor's degree. Imagine the gap between being born on a plantation and being Dr. Eldridge Henderson today. We're going to talk about that journey some, and we're going to also ask him to opine on the ridiculous things that I just talked about. The meeting and the situation is so critical until we asked our guest, Christopher Young, to join us tonight. Christopher is an award-winning reporter and writer for the Mississippi Link. He's a freelance writer. And he's covered these issues that I've spoken of from the very beginning. So we're going to talk about these things. But let me go to Dr. Henderson. Good to see you, sir, and always good to have you in the studio. How have you been?
I've been doing fine, sir, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with you all tonight.
Well, we're going to deal with some tough questions, Dr. Henderson, and so just stand by. Christopher Young, it's good to have you in the studio.
It's great to be here, Mr. Garrett. It doesn't get much better than this.
How have you been?
I couldn't be any better. I mean, I've only been a resident of Mississippi for 2 years and a few days, and already I'm on the Socrates Garrett live show. I mean, does it get any better than that?
Well, you're not only on here, we're honored to have you because I think you're going to add tremendous insight into what's going on in Mississippi. Let's start with you, Dr. Henderson. Tell us about the water crisis in Mississippi and about the garbage debacle that's going on and what we might experience tomorrow with garbage on our streets, and then ultimately give me your feelings about what the weather is doing in destroying the city of Silver City and the town of Rolling Fork.
Okay, let's start from the beginning, Mr. Socrates, about the history of the water problem in Mississippi, and especially Jackson. And, of course, this is impacting Hinds County indirectly. The water problem in Mississippi is probably about an ongoing problem of about 30 years. We had neglect for the last 20 years. The last 10 years, every day, the water situation is getting worse. We've had, during the last 10 years, serious, what we call negative leadership the council, the mayors cannot get together on a solution, and especially now, since it's at 0 point, which is tonight about midnight, some things going to be happening tomorrow that's going to cause a lot of people to get concerned. But if there's no resolution, tomorrow is not going to be anything considering what's going to happen in 7 days. Is the remedies you mentioned, putting all kinds of things down, trying to cover the scent and erosion and keep rodents out of the garbage, not going to work. So if they don't have a solution, and I'm talking about the city of Jackson, within the next 2 days, there will be a minor rebellion in Jackson, Mississippi. The problem is twofold. You have two major actors in this dilemma. One is the city council, the other is the mayor, and both have special interest groups that are aligning themselves in different directions with two different teams, and both want money and their favorites to get a contract. All the actors have not been revealed at this time, but we do hear rumors that certain people have applied for the contract. They submitted proposals, and the man we have here in the middle knows more about it than I do because he has done research and written on this matter, and I'm telling you, it's going to be alarming, and it will be a disaster. Now, the floods, the tornadoes, the storms in Mississippi and throughout the nation are going to get worse because we find that when you have chaos among people, if you believe in the Bible, chaos among people will bring the venom of God on the people, and they will suffer the consequences of evil, hoping that they will repent. That is what's happening in Mississippi, in the nation, and in the world. That supernatural man that created man, which is called God, is acting. And you said it yourself, Mr. Socrates. He put a whipping on Mississippi in the South. And the next 24 hours, he was smiling. He said, I'm going to give you another chance. And if you don't do what I know is best, what you know is best, in a few more days, I'm going to frown on you again. And that's starting tonight and tomorrow. He's going to put another whipping on Mississippi and the South.
Well, Dr. Henderson, I certainly agree with most of what you've said, and we certainly have a crisis situation that is upon us right now. It's not coming. We're in the middle of a crisis mode, and if the city of Jackson is not operating on an emergency today at this hour, I don't know when it ever should be under emergency. But Christopher, I want you to talk to us a little bit about those things as well, and I want to expand it to the House Bill 1020 that was recently voted on and passed by the Senate in the Mississippi legislature. And what does that absolutely mean to Jackson? It seems to me that Jackson is under a tremendous challenge for its survival because House Bill 1020 put a new police department in the city with a new court system in the city, and that's something that we've never seen before or never heard of absent of martial law inside of a city. But let's start with the crisis that we've been talking about again. That's the water crisis that we're experiencing. That's the garbage contract debacle that we're experiencing, and that is this tornadoes that are just devastating our great state. Why are we being treated so badly, Chris? You got any idea?
Yeah, it's tough to get a handle on that. I can't help but think when you first mentioned the water, my mind flipped back to that tape that somebody pulled out last summer with the governor when he was then, this would have been 2012, when he was then the
Lieutenant Governor, I guess.
Was it Lieutenant Governor then?
The governor?
No, the current governor. But then in 2012 he had a different role he was in.
He was the lieutenant governor.
He was a lieutenant governor then, and he had a hand on the bond commission.
Yes.
And he said right on the tape that he never voted against any money coming to Jackson. When Jackson would put in their request for funding, which is all cities do. I mean, everybody does. It's not like it's an anomaly. But he said, no, I never voted against any of that. And then he paused and said, we just talked about it ahead of time, and we never let it come up for a vote. So, I mean, this was just when he was lieutenant governor, just brazenly, openly talking about ignoring, this black city and ignoring the needs. And really, there's records that go back about 80 years about the lack of maintenance, the lack of upgrades, and the financial neglect of the city by the state that's resulted in this water situation. I'm sure I'm sure people in Jackson, not everybody was perfect and taking care of the system, but you got to have the funding to get the job done. So it's just a travesty. And on the trash, I've been at all those city council meetings that have to do with the trash. I was there yesterday. It was a sad occasion. I found myself saying when Brian Grizzell, Dr. Brian Grizzell, came in for the meeting, one of 3 people to show up, I said loud enough for everybody to hear, oh my goodness, here's a council person showing up for work. And because 4 of them didn't. And the other 3 that were there were quite solid that was a plan for them not to be there. That was talked about ahead of time for them not to be there. They had adequate notice, they chose not to be there. So it's just very sad. And I will just add in, because you mentioned the end of the emergency contract, but the mayor did say at that council meeting yesterday, where no votes could be taken in the absence of a quorum, he did say that he is not interested in another emergency contract. He did say that not only is he not interested in it, but would question whether or not any vendors would want to be involved in another emergency contract. So my fear is, of course, that and there was some talk about maybe having a council meeting tomorrow, but there's nothing been posted on the city website about that. And of course, my fear is that it shifts to hardball at this point. And he's going to let it pile up. They're going to let it pile up. But the other Councilwoman Lee, Councilman Grizzell, even Virgie Lindsay, I mean, as she's my ward council person, even she said that it was, what word did she use? Embarrassing, or she wasn't pleased that for such an important occasion as this, that people decided to be absent. They could have called in, they could have come in on Zoom or what have you, but they didn't take advantage of those options.
Chris, when we come back, we're going to ask you to speak a little bit about the devastation up in the northeastern part of Mississippi, but we're getting ready to go to a station break. Now, you're watching We Believe Digital Broadcast Studio. This program is Socrates Garrett Live. Now, if you're watching us on Facebook, we want you to share this program with your friends and family and hit the stars button. We need financial support to keep these kind of programs going. If you're watching us on YouTube at We Believe Digital Podcast, then we want you to subscribe. Our page is growing over on YouTube, and we need your support there as well. If you're watching us on WeBelieveDigital.com, our very own platform, then we want you to hit the donate button, and we want you to subscribe to us as well. There you will find many categories with important information that's housed under each category. You'll also find the We Believe Digital Internet radio station. Just click on there and enjoy the best music that you can hear 24 hours a day. So we have the media outlet here in Jackson, Mississippi that's controlled by African Americans, and is critically important, because otherwise we lose the narrative. We don't know who we are, where we came from, or what's happening to us today. And it's obvious that we are under an attack from either determined leadership to take us backwards or uninformed leadership that doesn't know what the hell they're doing. And so we're going to have to make some changes. Now, we're going to go to this commercial break, but you stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
With so much going on day to day, we lose track of what's important. Sometimes we get lost, we lose ourselves, and we forget that our personal care is important. Self-care is checking in on our physical and mental health and making sure we are using and putting good things into our bodies. It's when we take time, real time, to connect ourselves back to a beautiful, healthier, happier you. Join me and an expert lineup of speakers on April 1st as we teach you the real meaning of self-care. This will be an empowering and enlightening time to help you get and stay in tune with yourself. Invite a friend, invest in yourself, and let's all learn the true meaning of self-care. You need it, you deserve it. I can't wait to see you transform from the inside out.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Welcome back to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, a city in turmoil. Jackson, Mississippi, the capital of the great state of Mississippi, a city that is 85% African American. It's the blackest city in the nation. We had a record number of homicides last year, and we're well on track to do that again. And year before last, I believe we were noticed as the most dangerous city in America, right next to St. Louis, Missouri at that time. And so Jackson is under siege. It's under siege in many ways. We believe that the city is being invaded at this time by the state of Mississippi, who has for a long time had its eyes set on taking the assets of Jackson, Mississippi, under the disguise that their poor management and poor leadership has failed the citizens of Jackson, and we need the state to step in and do that. Now, earlier in our first segment, we talked about all of the things that are going on. We talked about our water crisis and how we got there. We talked about the fact that our garbage contract ends today and we have no one to pick up garbage. We talked about the fact that the tornadoes just devastated Rolling Fork like nothing we've ever seen. And we talked about that as it relates to Silver City. And so we're talking about these things because we believe there's someone out there, there's some group, there's some organization out there that says that enough is enough and that we got to get inside of what's really going on in Jackson, Mississippi, so that we can put it on a corrective path. It's not enough for President Biden and First Lady Biden to be in Rolling Fork today to view the devastation. It's not enough to view. At this particular point in time, there has to be programs and there has to be concepts, and we have to have mandates on how we implement strategies to turn this around on what's going on in Mississippi. We have a civil war going on in Mississippi in terms of the state itself, with whites against blacks at an all-time high. And so we're challenged with that. We have, the state has put in a new police department that patrols a great portion of the city that was not elected by the citizens of Jackson, does not report to the chief of police. Never seen that before unless we call it martial law, which we have not had in Mississippi, even didn't have during the days of James Meredith integrating Ole Miss. But we talked about those things, and we're going to revisit those things again. But if you want to join this conversation, you can dial 800-492-5186. We'd love to have your input. We're going to shift gears just a little bit, and I'm going to go to Dr. Henderson because I'm troubled by the fact that a young African-American male, DA, up in Manhattan, has led the charge and has accomplished getting an indictment of former President Trump. And that in itself is the first time that something like that has ever happened in the history of this great country. Dr. Henderson, what kind of man is the DA in Manhattan? And forgive me, I don't know his name. But he has sought an indictment of the former president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, a man who has incited riots, charged even the White House on January 6th, and a man who has a history of retaliating. What kind of man is this DA, and why did he do this?
Well, in my opinion, and from history, I'm going to tell you something that a lot of people have not thought about. This DA is what I call another Obama. Obama was made president of the United States during some of the worst economic problems we had in the history of America. The problems were so pervasive until the European Americans didn't want to mess with it because they had no solution as to how to curtail the economic disaster that would be following America for the next 5 or 10 years. So they say, since we can't handle it and don't want to touch it, we're going to give it to a black man. And they groomed Obama to make him president in less than 4 years. They say, we don't want to tackle it. We don't want to get accused of helping our friends. They got Obama in. They gave him a lot of support financially, all kind of consultants and staff people to help him. And he changed the country, not because he wanted to, because that was his mission from his special handlers, in my opinion, and according to history. You find the same thing is happening with this indictment against Donald Trump. This man and other attorneys had all the evidence he had. They could have used it. They didn't want to use it because they didn't want to hurt their chances for the future to be in a position to maintain their jobs and to get promoted in other jobs and make more money, have more influence. So they put it on I call it the Obama man. Say, boy, you got a job, this is what you got to do. And I bet he did what Obama did. Went and talked to his wife, if he has one, his mother, his friends, and say, I have a tough task. I have to go and see if I can get the former president indicted. What shall I do? Usually people will tell you privately, you do what you're supposed to do. Do you want to keep your job or not? He said, I want to keep my job. And he went on, presented his information to the grand jury, which proved from their vote that there is enough evidence there to take a positive action in his regard. And that's what he did. That's my interpretation of history and what I know about politicians.
Well, you seem to be saying that President Obama was a figurehead and that he was controlled by special interest groups.
That's what you think I said, sir?
I think that's what I heard, yeah.
You heard exactly what you heard.
Chris, Dr. Henderson has shed some light on that situation, that subject matter. And you are from up in the Virginia area, in that area, not far from New York City and places up that way. What's your opinion on how and what is the process of getting an indictment on any individual, but especially the President of the United States?
Sure, and I hear very clearly, too, what Dr. Henderson was saying, because I remember that guy was at Cyrus Vance was his name, and that name, they'd been in political office, positions of authority and so forth, and all of a sudden, as the evidence started rolling in, he raised his hand and said, no, I'm not going to run for re-election. I'm out of here, which created a vacuum for Alvin Bragg, this DA, to come in there. I hear that. I hear that part loud and clear. Yeah, well, the district attorney needs to gather whatever evidence is available to them, and then put that in front of the grand jury. And the grand jury's got 24 members, and 16 of them have to be on one accord. And that's what happened yesterday. Is that the evidence was presented to them. It can come in any different type of form, whether it was videotapes or documents or witnesses or what have you, or transcripts from interviews with witnesses or what have you, and the information is presented to them and they vote on it. And so 16, at least 16, I mean, it could have been unanimous. And I add too that I saw one report, I have not seen it picked up in the mainstream news, but I saw one report today that there was much, much more to it than the $130,000 hush money. That said there were 34 different counts. But I don't hear that on ABC or CNN, or you know what I mean? So I don't know if maybe that doesn't have credence, but I certainly read it this morning.
So the primary focus of the indictment seems to be on the hush money to Stormy Daniels.
Yeah.
And
as far as we know.
As far as we know, and that the president simply used political campaign funds to pay the silence of Stormy. And had he not used campaign funds, then I guess privately he would have been, there wouldn't have been any charge. Is that the way that works?
It makes sense. That's the way I understand it.
Misuse of campaign funds that's creating a problem for him.
That's right.
That has led to an indictment.
An indictment, and as I read it just an hour before the show began, they're working on arrangements now between the attorneys from the DA's office and Trump's attorneys. They're working on arrangements now where he is essentially surrenders on Tuesday, is what was talked about from two different major news sources. It's believed that he's going to surrender on Tuesday. He'll be booked. He'll be fingerprinted. He'll have a mugshot taken. And in all probability, he'll be out the door in, a couple hours.
Dr. Henderson.
Yes, sir.
It seems as if the divide in America is greater than ever before. I anticipate that if this president is booked and mugshot taken and fingerprinted, that there will be riots in the U.S. What's your thoughts?
Well, it's going to get close. I'm not going to say it'll be all over America, but there will be what I call cells of serious unconstitutional activity. But now you have to understand the history of America when it comes to the president. I don't care whether he is popular enough to get 50% of the vote or 49%. All these people want to do, the Democrats and the Republicans that want to be president, just want to get Donald Trump in a position where he has an indictment, which doesn't mean that he's guilty of anything. He's only found guilty during a trial by jury.
Yeah.
And they're going to delay this for months while they are trying to get him to court, keep him from campaigning, because they are running scared. The younger Republicans are tired of Donald Trump. They don't want him to have another 4 years because they want those positions. Governor of Texas, the governor of Florida, and some others. So they want to put him on the sidelines, have him whipped up while they run for president. They know they're not going to do anything with him. Punish White. They didn't do nothing to Nixon and all the Agnew and all them others they get out of Dodge, boys. They just don't want him to be president again because he's too popular. He's more popular than the two governors that I mentioned.
It's got to be embarrassing, Chris, for the U.S. He brought Nixon up, and of course that was an embarrassing moment that we'll always remember, that him entering the airplane and throwing a kiss of goodbye or the victory sign to the rest of the world. But it was a very embarrassing moment. I mean, the Oliver North scandal and all of that stuff that played out in there indicated and exposed the weaknesses in the American government and its leadership. Yeah. This has got to play all over the world in terms of even Putin in Russia and Ukraine, to see a former president as powerful as Trump being indicted, will that give other countries the impetus to say that now is the time to take on America?
Maybe it will, Mr. Garrett. I know. Recently, Israel has really, they're trying to change their court system over there, and they're trying. Benjamin Netanyahu is back. Now, this is, as we always hear it, for decades. Israel is the strongest. The United States is the strongest partner of Israel in the globe. And they want to change their court system and make it Netanyahu wants to make it appointees. And so, boy, does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Here, that's what we're doing right here in Jackson. They're trying to do this takeover and put appointees in the court system. So, yeah, it's embarrassing. Bolsonaro in Brazil, this Erdogan in Turkey, these are hard right people. And when we do that here, I think it does give license to people to push the boundaries further. And to me, I'm astonished by, because I tend to agree with Dr. Henderson that these younger bucks, they want to get, they don't want Trump back in office again. But it's amazing how they're all lining up. Lindsey Graham was just about in tears on CNN last night, urging people to donate money to Trump's campaign. It's just horrific, and how these guys flip-flop their positions. So many people are lining up behind Trump. Even Mike Pence says that it's outrageous for him to be indicted.
Well, I disagree with you and Henderson about the young bucks. I think that the Republican Party is in fine shape in terms of the process. The elders lead, and everybody marches to a footstep. So you're not going to get much break from Lindsey Graham and McCarthy and those guys. Those are staunch Republicans, and they're going to whip everybody into shape. But I think today that Trump, barring this indictment, Trump wins the nomination of the Republican Party once again. And so I don't think that they have that much discontentment inside of the ranks. I believe that they follow the marching orders of the establishment, and they do that extremely well. When you look at how they vote on things, 100% party line votes. No break in the ranks anywhere. So that's yet to be seen. But Doc, we're talking about America right now, and we're talking about the thing that the world is looking at, and we as African Americans have been devastated with poor policies and bad policies that affected us and the way we are able to live and achieve in this country. And while it's been the greatest country experience of all times, there are some serious niches inside of how African Americans have been treated, and we're still dealing with that today. And so I want to take you to a moment, though, on the global crisis and talk about China's involvement over with Russia and Putin. And if those two were to form a strategic alliance, what impact would it have on America's role with Kuwait and foreign policy and those things? Some say that China owns a tremendous amount of assets in America.
They do.
And so with China and Russia having meetings saying they're allies, what signal does that send to the rest of the world?
Well, that's, in my opinion, a serious indictment on how the rest of the world is going to be fooled. Now, you look at Putin, Ukraine, the Russians, and the Chinese. The Chinese, in my opinion, are people that are considered a sleeping giant. They're going to help the people in Israel, in Russia, especially Putin. They're going to have their allies to give some weapons and others to Ukraine so they keep that thing going. And while the Chinese have one of the largest army, most modernized army in the world, they are just waiting to get their cohorts weak. And then they're going to jump up in Africa, Asia, and Latin America and form new coalitions And the people in the Western world going to be weeping sharp tears because the Chinese going to be the #1 nation in the world. They're using the old American strategy. You get all the actors fighting, arm both sides, and take over the territory. That's exactly the strategy from history that I'm reviewing, saying that the Chinese is waiting. You don't hear them talking very much about anything in the world's press. They are acting. They are running around, sending their ambassadors here and there to America, to Russia, to Ukraine, building a force, already have their monetary interests and specialists in Asia, Africa, and Central America, buying land, building airports, putting in speed trains, and all kinds of things, Mr. Socrates. Man, this world is getting ready to get interesting.
Well, you're listening to Socrates Garrett Live, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi at the We Believe Digital Broadcast Studios. Now, you've been listening to Dr. Eldridge Henderson and Christopher Young, two gentlemen that have their fingers on the pulse of what's going on in Mississippi and the rest of the world. Now, we're getting ready to go to a station break. In our last segment, we're going to deal with some issues that are local and relationships and the lack of relationships and the discord that is seen in the African-American community and the African-American electorate, especially in Jackson, Mississippi. So we want you to stay tuned, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Welcome back. You're viewing Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live right here in Jackson, Mississippi from the We Believe Digital Broadcast Studio. Now, if you're watching us on Facebook, we want you to share this program with your friends and family and send us stars. We need your financial support for this program. If you're watching us on YouTube, we want you to go on and subscribe. Our YouTube presence and page is growing, and we need your help to continue that growth. If you're watching us on WeBelieveDigital.com, our very own platform, then we want you to hit the donate button. If you want to share in this program, you call 800-492-5186. Our distinguished panel has been dealing with issues that fall away as China and Russia's diplomatic agreement, as well as the insurrection that was caused by the former President Donald Trump and the new potential insurrection that could occur if, in fact, he is indicted. He has been indicted. If, in fact, he is mugged and fingerprinted and all of those things, we'll need to be on red alert in this country if that happens, especially here in Mississippi, because we are a deep, deep red state in Mississippi. And while we're about as a red a state as you can get. And so we need to be on high alert if something like that were to occur here in Mississippi. Now, our guest, Christopher Young, a renowned reporter and a freelance reporter working with the Mississippi Link newspaper and others, has covered a lot of these stories. And you can find his writings in the Mississippi Link online, as well as in their hard copy that's circulated throughout the entire state of Mississippi. Chris, Dr. Henderson certainly outlined some things that I want to continue the dialogue on just a bit before we shift to the local community.
Mm-hmm.
He was speaking about 4 seasons. And I'm not sure if I grasp exactly how he sees the seasons and the cycles in America or in life itself.
In life itself, right.
And so can you expound upon that a little bit?
Well, I mean, just my sense when I heard him say that, my mind goes to, the harshness of winter and the renewal that comes in the spring, and then we move on through the summer months to stretch that renewal and what it's brought forward as much as possible, but then the damper seems to come on again as we get ready to head towards in the fall, as we get ready to head into the winter season. So you could apply that, if that's a model, even perhaps a supernatural model, you can apply that to so many areas, and so when we ask ourselves where are we at right now, well, this is some kind of spring we're looking at. I mean, it sure feels like winter with all the adversity, all the devastation, all the infighting. That people every day of the week talk about potential civil war. It feels like the winter months. It doesn't feel like a renewal to me.
Thank you for that. Dr. Henderson.
Yes.
African Americans, do they have 4 seasons or do we have 1 season?
Well, African American historically only have 1 season, and that is the season of no opportunity, no respect. African Americans, listen to me well.
I'm listening.
African Americans, I'm going to say it again, African Americans are considered outcast in America. You have heard me say it. They're not even considered citizens in America. Read their so-called founding documents, their Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, the various state constitutions. No one has ever considered black people in America and the world as significant human beings. I did some research today where we said that during the 500 years prior to the end of the Civil War, black people in America, in Latin America, in the Bahamas and other places where they were slaves, were not even considered as human beings. They were considered as chattel.
Property,
which means when they were recorded in the government documents, in the books, in the wills and the journals of the European Americans, they were listed along with the tools,
oxen,
the mules, the cows, and the prize hunting dogs in the journals of the white European Americans. We are not considered significant. We never will, never have, because everybody in the world knows that if you give a black person just a little equity and opportunity, even if he starts behind, he'll catch up and win the race economically, socially, and politically. And the folks in Haiti proved that in the latter part of 1700.
So you got to trip them up.
So Christopher, he brought up Haiti, and I've always wondered about Haiti.
Yeah.
Haiti seems to have some of the best beach line, the shorelines. It's a beautiful place with a great climate. Why is it in such poverty?
Yeah.
What is holding Haiti back?
Yeah, I wish I had a magic wand. I could tell you the answer, but my sense is it's very much tied in with what Doc is saying here, that there's anytime people advance, and I believe there's lots of advancement going on in the African continent right now, and you don't hear that every day in the mainstream European American news, but there's people out there that just cannot abide. They look like me, they got this pale wrapper, and they absolutely cannot abide by black advancement. They cannot abide by black leadership. And so my sense would be with a country like Haiti that there's just a deliberate attempt over the years to continue to trip them up, to continue to foul up the wiring.
What's your thoughts on Haiti?
He is 100% correct. If you read the history books, and you know I've read them, it is by design that there should never be a real democratic nation called Haiti. They were very successful. They were the only people in the world during the late 1700s that were able to beat the French, which Napoleon was the premier or the governor or the president or the leader, the British, and others, without having anyone to have attended Harvard University, Yale, the London School of Economics. They beat those people. They were able to negotiate and take their country, rule their country, until they were tricked into having a meeting and the leader was locked up and put in prison, just like they want to do Trump. But since he is a Caucasian and an American, European American, they're not going to put him in jail. As Mr. Chris said, he'll probably be out of circulation for about 2 hours. He's not going to spend a night in jail.
No.
They're going to turn him loose, and he's going to go on and continue to run. And he's going to tell the people when they say, you're nothing but a criminal, he's going to say, I have not been found guilty of anything.
That's right.
I'm going to run. I deserve to be president of America. And his lawyer's going to delay a trial as long as they can, and that's when those cells going to pop up, causing distraction in America and distractions.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's history, sir.
Wow.
That's history.
That's right.
All right, we're going to move to Mississippi. Our time is running out. Chris, the DA in Manhattan has shown tremendous courage in forming the grand jury and securing an indictment of the president. In Mississippi, we've had the greatest scandal of all times and the loss of some $100 million on the DHS scandal.
That's right.
What role does the DA in Mississippi play in who gets indicted in those kinds of activities? I hear more conversations from the state auditor's office than I hear from the DA's office in Mississippi, and I never heard one word from the state auditor's office up in Manhattan. But here I hear the state auditor more than I hear the DA. What is our DA doing as it relates to that investigation?
Well, I may be, and I'm not any kind of a legal scholar or anything, but I may be way off base, Mr. Garrett, but I think it's good news when you don't hear anything from the district attorney. That means that they're out there doing what they're supposed to do. How many times have we seen the indictments? We just saw one, sadly, 3 correctional officers over at Raymond Detention Center, got caught involved in moving, and Sheriff Jones already spoken with the DA. Those people are on suspension right now, and they're getting ready to get terminated from their jobs as correction officers. So I don't think we need to hear from the DA all the time. And the auditor, the outspoken, morally believes himself to be morally high-grounded auditor that we have here in Mississippi, I think that's an anomaly. I don't think most auditors run around verbalizing like he does, producing 400 different reports that don't solve anything. I've asked him to please commission a report on what the real causes are for Mississippi being last in everything. I've asked him to ask all the state agencies why, when we have 139 state agencies in Mississippi, why 94% of those agencies are headed up by European Americans. Only 8 agencies in Mississippi are headed up by African Americans in the state that has the highest per capita population of African Americans in the whole nation. I don't get a response back when I ask those questions.
Wow, Dr. Henderson, we recently had the denial of the state superintendent of education in Mississippi, who many think the reason he was turned down is because he's black.
Well, that is history. That's the way it's supposed to be, according to the rulers in America and in Mississippi. If you're not of the right hue, if you're not looking like our wonderful friend here, you're not supposed to have a significant position where you control and make the final decision on big money.
Wow. Yeah, Chris.
I just want to add to that. I just saw on Twitter this morning, this, and I wish I had the list of districts in front of me, but this pale Christian conservative looks like me, Melanie Sojourner. I believe she's to the southwest part of the state. She was quoted yesterday as saying that she voted against Mr. Taylor, this highly lettered, got an amazing resume, well-deserving, and nominated by a GOP-controlled board. And she said, this white lady, was white senator, Mississippi state senator, said that she voted against him because in the past he has said that Mississippi is the most racist state in the country.
Well, now, that's interesting.
Well,
imagine that. So is she going to hold that against him for telling the truth?
well, I guess that's what they did, because he certainly was denied. Well, no, we're going to move. We have now final 5 minutes or so. We're going to move to the city of Jackson. The city of Jackson, Mississippi, an 85% black city, is made up of a strong mayor and 7 council members, 1 from each ward. We have 5 African Americans on the city council, 4 African American males and 1 African American female. At least 1 white male Caucasian and 1 white female Caucasian on that board. Out of those 7 people, out of those 5 African Americans, they were able to select and elect a white Republican president by the name of Ashby Foote to lead the Jackson City Council. And on yesterday, the day before, when the mayor tried to have a special call meeting, the president of the city council did not attend, thereby denying a quorum, and so there could be no vote taken. How in the world would 5 African Americans elect a white Republican in an 85% black city, in a 100% Democratic city almost? How does a white Republican male get elected as president of the city council, Dr. Henderson?
It's very easy. If you look at the history of Mississippi and many southern agencies that are promoted and supported and so-called ruled by black people, when you look at certain positions on those boards, this researcher will tell you, most times the attorney is white and has been there for many years, even since black took over as leadership. The purchasing agent is white. And usually, if there are 2 or 3 whites on the board, they are usually in leadership positions. Now, when you look at the attorney, the purchasing agents, those are the most important people in any organization. The attorney is going to tell the people on the board what the law says,
That's
right or wrong.
Yeah.
The purchase agents are going to spend the money and allocate it to anyone he wants and tell the board why he did it if they have enough gall to ask, and in most cases they won't, because they don't have no idea what he is doing, because they want to have on their resume that I'm on the school board, I'm on the city council, I'm on this or that. That is the reason, and that's the problem.
Chris, tell us who attended the meeting. And the background on this is that Jackson's contract for garbage collection ends today. We have no contract in place to pick up garbage in the city of Jackson. Chris, who attended the meeting and who did not attend the meeting?
The mayor attended the meeting. Incidentally, it was his 10th wedding anniversary. And he said, so I have to tell you, I did good just to be able to get here, because he said that he had to talk his wife into letting him come. And Dr. Omari was there beside him. And Virgie Lindsay was the first councilwoman to show up. And she, had a long face. And then Angelique Lee showed.
She is the only white female council
The only
person.
white female. And she's a former president of the city council.
That's correct.
They rotate every 2 years, I guess, and So then came Angelique Lee, who stood in for Ashby Foote because she's the vice president of the council at this point. Foote is the president, and she's the vice president of the council. So she stood in and sat in the big chair. And then Councilman Dr. Brian Griselle showed up. As far as out in the audience, you had a full range of media there, and you had, by my estimation, no fewer than 40 people from the proactive organization Working Together Jackson.
Wow.
You had Perry Perkins was there, Bishop Crudup, Bishop Pickett.
Well, I guess my question more is who was not there?
Well, who was not there was the four councilmen who really, since the onset of this trash contract, anything that showed signs of movement towards any other company than Waste Management, these four people have voted it down.
Name them, sir.
And they are
Name 'em.
They are Stokes, Kenny Stokes, Vernon Hartley, Ashby Foote, and Aaron Banks.
Now, 4 council people decided not to come to the meeting, so they would not ratify the mayor's contract for Richards to go forward. Richards Disposal is an African-American owned business that has had the contract in Jackson now for some 10, 12 months and has demonstrated that he's doing a marvelous job picking up this garbage. Has also indicated that his price proposals is hundreds of $1,000s less than the nearest competitor, and that he was willing to maintain those prices going forward in a new contract where other vendors have said they could not maintain those prices. And yet we have 3 African-American males that voted against a black contractor being a prime contractor in a 85% black city. And this is what we call friendly fire. If, in fact, we're going to have that kind of leadership from African Americans, then it says that we don't need African American leadership in a city if it's going to operate and act in that manner, that we're hurting ourselves more by putting people in place to do a job that deceive us and deny us opportunity. We call that friendly fire in the Army. And so something has to give. Dr. Henderson, we're running out of time, but give us your final comments and remarks.
Well, I want to conclude, gentlemen, by saying that you talked about something that's very important. That's friendly fire. But you don't have to worry about friendly fire anymore in Jackson, Mississippi. They have something called Bill, I believe, is 1020.
Right.
That is the new gentrification bill.
That's right.
That's going to take over the city of Jackson without the citizens' vote.
That's right.
And you don't have to worry about friendly fire anymore because the people are going to take over Jackson, Mississippi within the next 7 years without firing a shot. And the council people going to be new people that's going to be dancing and jitterbugging along with the new administration that's going to be here, which I'm not going to name. The poor people in Jackson, all over Jackson, going to be gradually moved out because they are not going to be able to live in those apartments and high-rises that they're going to build all around Ferris Street and down in Jackson in some of those outlying districts that the city council people have. And you're going to find that there will be no need for diversity in Jackson because you're not going to have any. And even those people that are lackeys to the people that's in power today, indirectly, are going to be excused and say, Uncle T, I don't need you anymore.
We remember the Trail of Tears. It's not far-fetched to believe that African Americans could be displaced and relocated completely out of the city of Jackson, as Dr. Henderson has indicated. Chris, your final comments.
Couldn't agree more with what Doc is saying, and the sad part for me is that, you have this upper tier of leadership, if you will, and they're, the whole time this is going on, they're going to be humming that tune that they're governing for all of Mississippi, and they are not. Black people, poor people first, you're screwed. if you're poor in Mississippi. If you're black and poor, you're doubly screwed. And yet they claim to govern for all of Mississippi, but poor people and black people are, I've come to understand, are invisible.
You heard it here on We Believe Digital Broadcast. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. This is our show for this evening. But these critical conversations must go forward, and we must have them more often. And so we're going to consider, increasing the number of shows that we bring you each week, because the times demand that we speak up. The times demand that we provide some leadership and some method of moving forward. James Meredith, the gentleman that integrated Ole Miss, said it's time for the citizens to turn to the elders, and that the elders must speak now from a position of what has happened to us in the past and where we're headed in the future. So we want you to stay safe out there, and until next week, you have a good evening. Good night.